Welcome to CKLU 96.7, your radio. I'm your host, Jess, with another edition of Creator Conversations presented by Our Creator. We definitely hope you've been checking out Our Creator, so you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, all under Our Creator. Or you can check us out on our website at www.ourcreator.com. That's OURCRATR. To see what we're up to. We're always working hard to put together all sorts of information to keep you, the social Sudbury, informed. Community engagement is something our team truly believes in, and as such, we're always on the lookout for new organizations, events, and people that we think you should know about. So make sure you're following us so you can keep up to date on what's going on in your city. Our guest for this week's episode of Creator Conversations is Shawn McLaren. If you don't recognize his name, you might recognize his alter ego, the raunchy bingo calling aunt Zelda. But he's got more than one trick up his sleeve. You can also catch him performing stand-up at any given stage around town, back in the office putting together Cinefest International Film Festival or LOL's Festival. Or most recently, he's been putting pen to paper and getting in front of the camera for his latest project, THC Positive. Written and shot entirely in Sudbury and featuring many familiar faces from around the town, SDC Positive is a vampire horror and stoner comedy that us here at Our Creator have been so eager to watch, and we might finally get the chance to this spring. In the meantime, we're going to get the scoop from Shawn on the project and how they've managed to put the whole thing together. We're recording this Saturday afternoon from the CKLU studios with Shawn McLaren. We're going to talk about some of his projects that he's working on and kind of get up to date with what's going on with THC Positive. So, Shawn, first of all, what is your connection to Sudbury? Did you grow up here? Did you move here?
Yeah, no, I grew up here all my life. I'm a West End kid. I grew up on Victoria Street, and then I moved away for a little while, got out to Manitoulin Island. That's as far as I got. But yeah, I lived there for a couple of years doing radio, and then came back home to work at Kicks about, 6 years ago, and now I've been back, and ultimately stuck around because the film industry was happening in town, and all of a sudden I moved back to my hometown, and they're making movies here, which I never thought would happen. So yeah, I ended up working for Cinefest, Music, Film, and Motion. That's my first full-time gig, trying to promote the film industry and music and cultural stuff up here. And in the meantime, kind of latched on to some friends who wanted to make movies, and yeah, so yeah, Sudbury all my life. That's how it goes. I dig this town. It's got potential.
Just hometown boy.
Yeah,
can't keep it away.
Well, my family's here, and then I went around, I fooled around and fell in love, as the song goes, and now my family's here, so I like it. You can make do with what you got, and you make the best of what you got.
The thing I love about Sudbury is that I always say Sudbury's kind of like a sandbox.
Yeah.
It's like if you think that you want to do it, you can figure out a way to do it, and someone will support you in it.
And that's the cool part. I mean, a lot of people feel you have to, and I was the mentality too, that I had to go to Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal to make all these dreams come true. And yeah, perhaps there's more opportunity there. There's more, especially for stand-up comedy. There's more rooms. There's more of a community. But managed to do it here and still have fun with it and make a little bit of money and still have. It's nice to see something grow as opposed to going down to try and join another team,
Mm-hmm. So you seem to juggle a lot of different plates. You're involved with tons of different projects. You're obviously heavily involved in the comedy scene. You work with Cinefest and Laugh Out Loud. You perform all the time as Aunt Zelda for Dirty Bingo, and you even bartend over DQs.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of juggle all these different things?
The hustle is strong. Well, first off, I mean, everybody asks me, they think to be busy for busy's sake isn't a good thing, You could hustle and you could be productive, but if you're just running around frantically, then you're not really getting anything done. I think as a kid, I should have been diagnosed ADHD or ADD. And maybe if they put me on Ritalin, it would have been a totally different story now. But I find that there's so many things that interest me, and I feel like you only have one crack at this go. Henry Rollins said there's no such thing as free time or downtime. There's just lifetime. And I think you kind of have to find the things that make you stoked. I mean, I do burlesque, I do stand-up comedy, I'm dabbling in film. I'm trying to try to get my creativity out there, or at the very least use that and do something with it before I run out of time. You know?
Yeah. Well, kind of speaking of the whole kind of idea of undiagnosed ADD or whatever, right? Like, it's kind of interesting when you meet people that in adult life that are kind of like, maybe I should have been diagnosed with something, but have kind of managed to find a way to, like, harness into something productive.
And that's,
like, I have all this extra energy, so I'm going to, like, devote that to, like, other projects and other things I'm interested in.
I think that's a good thing. I think frankly, you know, that's how those types of diagnoses, if you can, should be channeled. You know, like, I'll never forget my math. In high school, I'm a horrible math student. I can't do math, and I love the fact that we have calculators in our pockets on our phones, because it just
saves you the embarrassment.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where I want to go back in time to my grade 9 math class and be like, yes, we will have calculators at all times, so it's okay. I don't need to know this. But my world studies teacher, Mr. Morris, and always used to say, you know, if you can't do math, don't do math. You know, and what that basically meant is, like, find what works for you and try and channel it into that. So I managed to find it through writing, through English, through that kind of stuff, through the arts. You know, film always fascinated me. Making people laugh always fascinated me, because I was the fat kid growing up. You know, you had to, you know, make them laugh before they laughed at you. So now it's just channeled into some pretty fun opportunities. Like, now I'm, you know, for a kid from a small town, I'm very thankful and fortunate for the experiences I've had and the people I've had a chance to work with in comedy. I've gotten to share the stage with some really funny people, and some people who I feel like I'm a peer as opposed to a spectator, which is nice.
Yeah, so it's, like, nice kind of to feel part of a community, because there is such a small crowd that are working on a lot of these projects you're working on, right? So you really kind of get to know who you're working with, each other's strengths and weaknesses, what you can kind of both handle.
Well, and it's kind of awesome because, you know, especially in Sudbury, and people talk about this a lot, like from the people who do Up Here, or the bands that are around town, the artists who do the murals, who, you know, or even burlesque, all the dancers and the singers and the actors who kind of come to that. There's these kind of projects or these kind of things are possible in Sudbury because there's a lot of other people who are just as passionate as you are, and if you find your tribe, you know. I always say, you know, awesome gravitates towards the awesome, you know. I don't necessarily believe in The Secret or all that kind of jazz, but I think a positive attitude and a clear goal of what you want to do or how you want to do it, you'll start attracting people who want to do it. That's what happened with THC, and that's what happens with a lot of these ideas, that, you know, people who are just as equally as stoked as you will find you if you have a good idea. You know, and that's what kind of happens in Sudbury. That's what I like to see right now, because there's so many talented people who are looking for things to do. All it takes is something to rally behind, and 9 times out of 10 you come and are able to accomplish it.
And it's the best thing when it's kind of like a clandestine group that kind of all come together under a common goal, and just kind of, it's like fate.
Well, yeah, you could call it that. You could call it kismet. You could call it whatever you want. Like, I mean, for instance, with THC, like, I had minimal experience working in Sudbury. I think a lot of people who are working in the film industry at the beginning, I remember it was Météo Plus was the TV show. It was a French TV show about a weather station, and I managed to get onto that show as a camera trainee, and I was out of radio. I was doing trying to figure something out. I didn't speak French, and they hired me, and it was my first time on a film set. So I had done, you know, small jobs in films, from, you know, just set PAs to production assistants, things like that, but got a very cool vibe of it and started meeting crew from Sudbury who were very passionate. I met our cinematographer, Matt Seguin, who's now over at the American Film Institute in LA in the cinematography program. I mean, it's the most prestigious film school in the world, and to see a kid from Sturgeon Falls who's just passionate about what he does make it all the way to that was really inspiring. And to be working with a guy like that on our first feature film, which we had no idea how to do. We just knew how to work these jobs in the film industry. We had a great set of grip and electrics. We had an incredible sound team. We had makeup and hair artists who get paid good money to do what they do professionally, and they just took their summer vacation to do it for us for free. That to me was a really humbling and awesome experience, because our director Will Andrews, he and co-writer too. I mean, he came up with this idea about pot smoking vampires, and it just crystallized into this script that people actually said, "Fuck it, we'll be." I don't know if I can swear. Excuse me, but we said
I can edit in post.
Okay,
that's
great,
fine.
Awesome. By the way,
all you want.
They're swearing in the movie. We managed to get this team together to do it and make it, and that to me says something really kind of indicative of Sudbury, is that there are a lot of very passionate, creative people who want to see stuff happen here. So sometimes you just have to go out and do it, and it's possible here, which is awesome.
Yeah. So kind of because we've already talked about THC Positive a little bit, that's a project you've been working on for a while now. So
yeah.
Can you kind of tell us about just the kind of the basic concept of the movie?
Sure. So, I mean, the whole notion is it's a horror comedy. It's got a little bit of romance, got a little bit of scariness, got some action, hopefully a lot of laughs. But it's all about Doug and Chuck, and I played Doug, who's a bit of a slacker. Works at the townhouse, doesn't really have any goals and ambition in life. All he likes to do is just sit on the couch and get stoned with his best friend Chuck, who happens to be a 400-year-old vampire. And they like to watch horror movies all night. One day I lose my job and need to make a little bit of money, and we stumble into the world of selling high blood to vampires. Sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's
just ridiculous enough to work.
I think so, and I think when we pitched the idea, Will had never smoked weed in his entire life, so he came up to us and he's like, "I just see in my head this picture of a guy sitting on a couch. He takes a bong hit, hands his wrist over to his friend. His friend bites his wrist, and they're both stoned now." And I'm like, "That's ridiculous. Luckily, we smoke weed. We can help you." So we helped him, and we ended up writing the script, and it was my first script writing credit. And it was, again, because I've been writing all my life but never knew how to channel it. To have a friend and to have a collaborator who I just met and just got me stoked about kicking it in high gear and made me write with him. And now we have this movie. It took a long time to finish, though. We finished the script January of 2014. We shot in July of that year. And now we're sitting in 2017, and the movie is finally edited. It's finally at the last edit. We're at our fine cut. And it's about to go to picture and sound. So we're going to do sound mix and color correction in Toronto with a great company called Eggplant Pictures and Sound. But it took 3 years to figure it out. Because, A, never made a feature film before. You don't understand the complexities of it. Everybody told me there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit. And editing has taken a long time. Frankly, when the budget comes from credit cards and donations from friends and family, you don't realize how expensive it is to do. Anyways, long story short, took a while, but we managed to get some investments and have an editor on board, and we're finally at the finish line, which is awesome to hear. So
when do we think we're going to finally get to see the movie?
Finally hope to get to see it. We're hoping to kind of coincide with legalization, so we want to do... by the time it's finished at Color and Sound, it'll be finished by about February, say March. At that point, we're definitely going to do something in the spring, hopefully around 420 locally, to do some screenings here in Sudbury and North Bay. And then the goal is to put it out to film festivals. So see what happens with the film festival run. If someone likes it, we get distribution. It could go a little bit bigger. But definitely online streaming services, figure out, fingers crossed, to get it to Netflix. I mean, there's been some exciting announcements in regards to Canadian content and streaming services. $500 million is going to be invested into Netflix over the next 5 years, specifically for Canadian content. Our dream is to have the movie go out to the film festivals. Someone likes the idea, and we can sell it as a potential TV show. We can take these characters, because I think that's the idea, and that's what our investors and the people who have seen it has said, that we're introducing a pretty cool world that you should be able to explore. You say it's like a sandbox. We want to expand our sandbox into something more episodic. So fingers crossed. I mean, Kevin Smith was one of our inspirations in this when Clerks came out. I watched it as a kid and being like, this is the first example, or for me, of an example of someone who can just go out there and make a movie. You know, you can do this independently. So when we did this, it was very much in that spirit, in that vibe, you know. And I was telling you earlier, you know, if even if only my friends and family and the people here in Sudbury see it, we finished it, you know. That's all I want, and I want to be able to hopefully someday make another one.
Yeah. So a large portion of the film was funded by like IndieGoGo campaign. So what was the budget for that? And did you find that you got a good response? So how many donors do you think you had in the end?
We see IndieGoGo is one of those things too, where your first time around with it, it's a very intensive process. You need to monitor it and keep it going the entire time. Make sure you have great incentives. When we did it, we felt like we had great incentives, and we tried to promote it the best we could. But again, learning curve, man. So we ended up with about 3,000 from IndieGoGo, and then we ended up doing an event at the Grand, a fundraiser, a big party, and we ended up making, I think, about 5 from that, and then the rest was kind of supplemented through credit cards. So I think in the end, through favors and donations and credit cards, we shot this thing for probably around $25,000. Which is a pretty minuscule budget in the world that we would call micro filmmaking. But luckily, because of the connections and the favors we had accumulated throughout the years and the skill set of the people involved, we managed to get some really great gear packages from some great donations, and our gear was on par with $1 million budget film. So in the end, we took $25,000. I think we made it look into $1 million, which is great. You know, especially
that's a good conversion rate.
I think so. I think it was a good return on investment, and the people, you know, like now that we have an investor and we have somebody kind of funding us through to get this thing to the finish line. You know, this guy is he's a rich fella. He's seen $1 million, so he should be able to recognize $1 million idea, which is what he claims this is. So to have that kind of faith in the project and something that you worked so hard on getting to audiences is really reassuring, because you know you can a lot of times I think people can get things started and do something. Getting it started is the easiest part. It's finishing it is the hard part. So I mean, everybody who's asking us and interested in seeing the film, I'm stoked. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I can't wait to show you guys. Thanks for waiting for us. It's coming. I think the joke on the tagline will be that we got stoned and forgot. And we'll figure something out.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's going to be good, though. I'm excited. And the one thing I want to say about it is that the reason I'm really stoked to show it off is because that it was 100% Sudbury born and bred. It was Sudbury actors, Sudbury musicians. We have some incredible bands in it, all sorts of great locations, and everybody knocked it out of the park. Like I really want to show that level of talent that is here in town to other people, and I think that the goal of what we're trying to accomplish with this film industry up in Northern Ontario is to start training, you know, northern filmmakers to tell their own stories and to have their own voice. And you know, maybe people will be a little bit embarrassed that the first one to come out will be something about pot smoking vampires, but hey, this is all Sudbury made. So we're stoked to show that off, man.
Yeah, that's exciting. So we'll be we're going to break for a little bit of music, and then we'll be on to our next segment, which will be our creator conversations, and then right after that, our hot jam sandwich. That was our first segment of the night. We are going to do a little break for some music before we head into our second segment, our creator conversations questions and our hot jams for the week. First up we have Danny Lash and the Looks with a song called We Know. Coming up right after that, we will have Fashionable People by Joel Plaskett Emergency and Let's Run Away by Matt and Kim.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations. I bet you're expecting some music right now. Turns out copyright laws even apply to us. So check below in the description for all the links for the music that we would have played this episode, and you can always follow us on Spotify to keep up to date with our playlists.
And we're back in studio with Seek and Creator Conversations on CKLU 96.7. I'm your host, Jess, here from Our Creator. So if you head over to our website right now, www.ourcreator.com, that's OURCRATER.com, you'll find out a few articles that I'm going to highlight for you right now. So we'll find an update from our new contributor, Amanda, who is our correspondent for the Sudbury Wolves, giving you a little update on the injuries occurred by the team. We have another update as well from one of my other co-founders, Emily, from the website. She's giving us this week our top 5 Instagram hotspots in Sudbury. You can also check out our last week's episode with Starlet Dresden, Starlet's Teen Vintage. If you're inclined to, you can also check out her vintage show this week at STC on Thursday night. That's Thursday the 16th, where she's going to be putting on display a completely unprecedented stock of STC stage pieces that have not seen the light of day in so many years, up for sale for your browsing pleasure. We also have our latest edition of Book Talk with Greater Sudbury Public Library. This one is with our current poet laureate, Kim Fauner, and she gives us her the books that inspired her and the books that made her fall in love with literature. And it is the season. Halloween is wrapped up, and Remembrance Day is too now. So we also have our top 5 holiday events in Sudbury for the month of November. So you can always make sure you check that out. Make sure you get all the holiday cheer in for the season. Make sure you can always check out our show is always going to be live on Sunday nights at 10 o'clock. But if you happen to miss it, or maybe if you wanted to catch up on last episode, give it a second listen, you can always check out for our links. They'll be posted on ourcreator.com, but we'll always be posting our episodes to SoundCloud with an accompanying article, so you can listen back whenever you like. So some of our past interviews, we already talked about Starlet Dresden. She was our last week's interview, where we talked all about vintage items, and we shared personal stories of our favorite vintage items that we have. Our second episode, we talked with Alessandro Constantini, and if you've never listened to him speak, he's quite a passionate speaker, so definitely listen to that. And then we also talked a little bit about Sudbury Burlesque with two of the members. We talked with Morgan McKee, who's been with the troupe for quite a while, and Lauren Pileggi, it was her very first show coming up at the end of October for the Monsters Ball 3. So it was a really interesting perspective to kind of hear from Morgan, who's tackled this a few times, and Lauren, who's was at that time still nervously awaiting her stage debut. So we hope you're keeping up with Creator Conversations. We're going to head right into our next segment with Shawn McLaren. We're going to learn a little bit more about the THC positive and when we can we can see that finally. And we're going to find out some of his answers to our Creator Conversations questions. So remember, these are cards that you're going to be able to find all over downtown. They'll have a question for you. The question might be, what's your favorite view in the city? What do you think is Sudbury's signature dish? And the idea here is that they will be kind of spontaneous pickup cards, so you can engage in constructive conversations with whoever you happen to be with at the time, and just kind of spark a conversation about the things that you love about Sudbury. So we're going to get Shawn's opinion on a few of those questions, and we're also going to get his hot jams for the week. So stay tuned, and we'll have that coming up in just a second. Okay, so we are here for segment 2 with Shawn McLaren for Creator Conversations. This is our kind of more of a random section. So to start things off, Shawn, so you wear a lot of different hats. Obviously, you work with Cinefest, you work with Laugh Out Loud, but then on a completely different contrast, you do stand-up comedy, you work with burlesque, you are and Zelda. So how do you find a challenge to kind of wear both hats and balance that?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 different representations on it. I mean, I think my professional life kind of encompasses everything that I do. I think that to do well with Cinefest and LOL and to present arts and culture to Northern Ontario and to be a representative of that, I think it's important that I myself do it on my own time. That those connections and those performances and that experience in creating an audience experience, I guess, has really served me well. So I think it's hard to balance it sometimes when it's go, go, go. I mean, for instance, doing Sudbury Burlesque this year, was awesome. It was super important for me because this year was the first year that I performed with my girlfriend. She's dancing now. It was awesome. It was a really great time, but that's a very time-consuming endeavor, So I feel that now doing that is fueling my desire to jump back into comedy, and because I've been away from it, I'm hungry for it. So I think it's all about balance. I take time for one thing here, I give it to another thing afterwards, and then also
so you get full of the one project, you kind of do something else, you get thirsty for it again, you kind of swing back and forth, you never get tired of all the different projects you're working on.
No, I think if I just did one thing, I would be stagnant, I like to do a bunch of different stuff I think it makes everything stronger. I think doing burlesque makes me a better stand-up. I think doing stand-up makes me a better MC. I think, those
creativity is a muscle. If you don't work it in a bunch of different ways, you're just kind of bored.
Exactly. And I feel like, not that, I never get bored. When people say I'm bored, it's just, I don't think they found something that excites them, So yeah, for me, I feel like it's difficult. Like, even with the Zelda stuff, like, she's a totally different character. That's not me, That's a creation, an amalgamation of different things to kind of be, she's an ally. She's nuts enough that it makes you feel comfortable to be exactly who you are. If this guy can get up and, because I never with Zelda, it was one of these things where I was asked randomly to host a dirty bingo. And they said, well, can you dress up as a woman? And I said, yeah, I can, but I definitely want to be sensitive to it. I don't want to come out and pretend that I'm gay, because I'm not, and I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want that to be a caricature. And I don't want to pretend I'm an actual drag queen, because there are people who take a lot of pride and identity in that. So coming up with the idea that she's actually my aunt, this 68-year-old woman from Go Gamma who's nuts and is very sex positive and wants everybody to have fun. I think having that character created is makes it easier, and that's why I think people dig her. Otherwise she would just be really offensive. Yeah, but she is, but fun. We'll see.
So you've made up the backstory that she's your aunt from Go Gamma, but is there anyone in particular that she's inspired by?
No, not like in my real life. I mean, like, I guess an amalgamation, like Dame Edna. He was a Australian comic who did the Dame Edna character, and I remember seeing him as a kid, or her as a kid, and thought it was hilarious. It was, Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams. Like, there's a little bit of Mrs. Doubtfire on methamphetamines, kind of in that. There's basically the notion of just, I think as you get older, and I've seen that in a lot of my relatives and people who got older, some of them just went off, not the deep end, but they just swung for being exactly who they are. And if you want to be who you want to be, go for it. And that's what Zelda encourages.
So in your life as a comedian, where do you find that you are able to kind of gather the most material for the stage?
Life, straight up. My friends give me the gears, because in my early stand-up career, they would just be like, you basically just listen to our conversations and go on stage. And I'm like, wow, kinda. Sorry. You guys are inspiring. I guess now, the stuff that I'm trying to write now, just the absurdities of the world. It's a crazy place. I like making fun of hypocritical things. Now, I have two dogs, so they're giving me a lot of stuff. Being in relationships, just little things like anytime I have a thought that seems strange, I try to write it down and see where it goes. Because I think for me, trying to tell jokes and doing stand-up, it's about those things that you say in your head that you're like, no one else thinks this way, but then you say it on stage and you realize a lot of other people think this way. They're just too embarrassed to say it. So as a comedian, I try to say the things that people have thought about but would never publicly say. You know?
Well, and you can see that all the time. That, like, there's a podcast that I listen to called My Favorite Murder.
Yeah.
You should check it out.
Yeah, I've listened to it. It's great.
Yeah, and there's, like, this whole kind of community that's kind of gathered around it. And, like, the two hosts, like, if you listen to them, they'll say, like, a million times over, like, we thought we were the only weirdos that loved murder.
Yeah.
And look at all these murderinos that popped up. She's like, we thought we were weirdos.
And they do their live show at comedy festivals and stuff like that, and they get a huge crowd all the time. And it's funny, my friend Elise, she's gonna hate that I call her out, but she's a huge true crime nut, you know. And like sometimes you go over to her place and she's telling you the gory details of the newest book that she just read, like it's nothing. My Favorite Murder is capturized on that. It's cool. I think a comedy makes you realize that you're not. It's okay to be weird or wrong or like the dark stuff. You know, it's okay to be freaky and strange. I think people who don't respond well to comedy shows or people who come out and protest shit or, I mean, protesting is a wonderful thing. If you see an injustice in the world, go for it. But if you're protesting a comedy show, I think you're doing it wrong. I mean, we're there to show the absurdities. It's not coming from a place of hate. It's to highlight those things and collectively make us look at it a different angle. Maybe laugh at it and it'll make it easier, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
It's comedy. Don't take it so seriously.
Well, you can't, man. You know, you really can't. And like, yeah, there's some times where a joke strays into bad taste, but I don't know, man. Life isn't sanitized. There's the dark and the bad, and if you can make light of the dark sometimes, maybe it makes the light a little bit better. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah,
I used to have a teacher in high school, and he had this phrase that we kind of carried on, me and my friends, into college, that he would say kind of like about like the world being sanitized. At the time, there was like a Purell commercial that was really popular, where it was like they Purelled the handlebar of like a grocery cart, and he was just like, sometimes you've got to lick the grocery cart.
Sometimes, man.
Sometimes you just have to lick the grocery cart.
And like I look and it's a good analogy for it. I mean, like if you look and like now, like, you know, when I was growing up, and I hate to be the old man in the room, but, you know, like, we didn't have hand sanitizer on the playground, you know, that kind of stuff. We would get dirty. We would eat a little bit of dirt. And now you see, you know, growing up, like, there are parents that are constantly hand sanitizing their kids after they touch anything. Well, in that situation, you see now kids don't have an immune system. They don't have a tolerance for it. And I think the same could be applied to sanitizing the world around you. You can't sanitize everybody's opinion. We create echo chambers that reinforce whatever point of view you have. And if you don't build an immunity to the rest of the world's point of view, then you can't really function into it, you know?
Yeah.
You become sanitized and you can't function. And I think comedy allows you to check it out in an easy way.
Do you have any upcoming projects you want to highlight?
Right now, just I want to get THC to the finish line. That's the main goal. After that, more comedy shows. Like I'm hoping to be doing some more stuff in the spring and summer in Toronto. Start doing some more of the pot rooms down there. I've had the opportunity to do a few of them, which is awesome. Just refocusing on comedy, gearing up for the LOL Comedy Festival. Start to promote that. That'll be happening in 2018. No set date yet, but watch for it. And then, we're taking Zelda on the road, too, doing different things. We just did Laurentian University this week. And again, I was terrified going into it. I'm like, I think either A, no one's going to show, or B, whoever's showing, they're coming to protest how insensitive this is. But it was packed, and everybody loved it. So we're going to do more of those. We're going to do some college shows, and I'd like to get out to Coca to start auditioning for that kind of stuff.
So we're going to jump right into our Creator Conversations questions. So these are a little tough. You might get stumped.
That's cool.
But let's give it a try.
I'm prepared.
So Shawn, who do you think is your favorite Sudburyan?
My favorite Sudburyan? I'd have to say my dad. He's awesome. But my favorite Sudburyan in the way of, man, I love Jeff Mack and Rob Gregorini for what they're doing downtown. And the advocacy that they put back and their desire to put facts ahead of things, and also their desire to see community. And then Maureen Loma, big shout out to her too. Everybody, gets focused on this whole downtown versus the world, or the world versus downtown, but ultimately I just think that they have the benefits of the city at heart, and they want to see a creative, passionate, and great business-minded culture in Sudbury. And I dig them for it. Yeah, they're my favorites.
Faves. What would you say is Sudbury's signature dish? There's a lot to choose from.
Porchetta.
It's obvious question.
The porchetta. I mean, I see, man, and it's weird. I've never played bingo in my life, but I call bingo, I do a dirty bingo, and I call porchetta bingos. And porchetta is just like, if you describe Sudbury to someone from out of town, you explain it to them in this sense. It's like, Sudbury's this magical place where we get together as a community on Saturday afternoons and raise money for children's charities by getting day drunk and playing bingo for porchetta sandwiches.
Bingo for meat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's how we do. And yeah, it's just unique and it's
that's
weird.
A culture right there.
It is, man. It's so unique. I've taken people from out of town down south to porchetta bingos, and they're like, what is this madness? And why can't we do it back home?
They're jealous.
They are.
They're just jealous. So you filmed a lot of obviously all of TUHC positive actually around Sudbury. So what would you say is your favorite location to shoot in Sudbury?
Favorite location to shoot in Sudbury? For me, and again, I'm personally biased, but there's two. Verdicchio was my favorite place to shoot because we shot in Verdicchio. In the story, the one of the bad vampires owns Verdicchio. So we had the opportunity to take over the whole restaurant in the hall. And that was beautiful because it was just very accommodating and also great location to shoot in. The other place that was super fun to shoot in was the Grand and Fuse. We got to shoot in there, and it's such an old, creepy building, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm convinced it's haunted, but it was fun. It was a good time.
Well, speaking of haunted places, have you checked out our video that we have up on our Crater right now?
No, what's going on?
We have a video for everyone listening to go check out. If I haven't already mentioned it in the show, we have a video right now up on our Crater. We convinced the Art Gallery of Sudbury to let us bring a psychic to the gallery.
Oh, that's awesome.
To talk to Catherine Bell.
And how'd it
go? She's reasonably annoyed.
Oh, I see.
She feels that, and it's true. She really truly feels that she did a lot for her community.
Yeah.
And that everyone's forgotten about her, and now everyone comes to her house and no one knows who she is.
No one knows who she is, so she's a little bit peeved.
And she's a little bit annoyed about it.
Why did they put up a picture? It's
well,
an art gallery.
that is her request. She wants a plaque, and the art gallery is trying to figure it out. They're making it happen.
Now, wait a second. Now, is the psychic that came in? Does she have a plaque making business on the side? Like, is she getting a cut?
I have not
check your sources.
Her affiliation.
Check your sources. That's all I ask.
Check your sources. Oh, man. So now we're going to kind of go into our last segment of music. So this is always our hot jam sandwich. So basically how it goes is it's a personal phrase of mine, Shawn.
I like it. I want a hot jam sandwich right
now. So basically this segment, you're going to pick whatever song that you think is your hot listen of the week, and I will do the same.
Okay.
If you have two, you can put two in. If you don't, I will pick a random.
I only have one, and I feel as though it's not a new song, but it's my new song right now. There's this great documentary called Rumble. It's all about how Indians, Native Americans, rock and roll.
Oh, was that played over Cinefest?
Yeah,
right?
Well, it was at Cinefest, but it was also just recently at the Junction North Film Festival done by the Indie Cinema. Went to go check it out, and I was blown away. And there's one song in particular, and I was really impressed. My girlfriend told me all about it too. Is "Come and Get Your Love" by Redbone. A lot of people may remember that tune from Guardians of the Galaxy at the beginning of the first one, or the F is for Family on Netflix. But "Come and Get Your Love" is a groovy tune, and it's everybody in the band is Native American, and in a time when they weren't allowed to wear regalia or anything of their heritage on television or even in radio, they were some of the first to go on stage and just bust it out and be a kick-ass rock band, but also representing their culture. So that one for sure. That's my hot jam.
Damn. Well, my hot jam is also a throwback.
Nice.
I was DDing for my cousin last weekend,
Smart.
and he responsible, right?
Yes, very responsible.
He got into my car. He saw my big bag of CDs. He pulled out random CD, and it happened to be the soundtrack to season 1 of Friends.
Nice. Okay. All right. I'm going 70s. You're going 90s. Okay, I gotcha.
And so that's just been kicking it in my CD player all week.
Okay.
And the one song that I cannot stop playing is I Go Blind by Hootie and the Blowfish.
I love that jam.
Hootie should have never left,
We were listening to Hootie last night, my girlfriend and I was really surprised at how country Hootie was even before Darius Rucker went country.
I know. And, like, now he's Darius Rucker, and you can just love him even more.
Yeah. You know what? Shout out to Darius Rucker. If we make a movie, I would
Shout out for Darius Rucker
like
for representation in country music.
Good for you, man. Okay, cool.
You're
I
killing
like
it.
this hot jam sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are all set, and we are gonna pick I'm gonna pick a random one, and it'll be a big surprise on Sunday night what we're gonna play for our last song.
Beautiful.
So Shawn, we are all wrapped up here for your input this week for Creator Conversations.
Thank you.
So we will catch you again, maybe closer to the release of THC Podcast.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you for sticking on this long road, and keep doing stuff that makes you happy.
That was the end for our last segment with Shawn McLaren. So he left us off with our hot jam set up for the week. So we are going to play Come and Get Your Love by Redbone. That was Shawn's pick. And mine was I Go Blind by Hootie and the Blowfish. And then we kind of left the last one up for a surprise. So the last one is a song by Jerry Ledger and The Situation. It's a song called Forge Check. Now, the reason I picked them actually is if you go to Northern Lights Festival Borealis page on December 9th, I believe they are performing here in Sudbury for Northern Lights Festival. So you're not just limited to the summer months. Northern Lights Festival is bringing you music all year round. So listen to this track and decide if you maybe want to check out the show. Either way, check it out, see if they've got other shows coming up. They've always got something going on. We definitely love to support the Northern Lights Festival every summer. It's one of our favorite things. So we are going to play, we've got Redbone, Hootie and the Blowfish, and then Jerry Ledger and The Situation.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations. I bet you're expecting some music right now. Turns out copyright laws even apply to us. So check below in the description for all the links for the music that we would have played this episode, and you can always follow us on Spotify to keep up to date with our playlists.
And that's a wrap for Creator Conversations for this week. This is your host, Jess. I'm about to just send you off to sleep with a nice playlist overnight. But before that, I just want to plug a few shows that I think you should listen to. So first thing in the morning, we are going to start your day off bright and early with the LU mornings at 8 a.m. And if you stay tuned in until noon, you'll hear Soundjack Radio with our friend Jackie, Baseline Jack. If you're into house music, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. But even if you're not, I definitely have tuned in and had some a really productive hour just listening to having some house music down in the background there. Next week, actually coming up on Saturday, if you are inclined at all to listen to a show heavily featuring feminism, you can listen to Bikini Burger with my friend Claudine. You can also listen, if you're inclined to tune in a little bit early next week, from 6 to 8, my friend Yvonne will have a show. This is his show called The First Fall. So there's lots of stuff always going on CKLU. You can tune in any time of day and find just about any kind of program that you can think of. So it's always a fun kind of surprise to tune into the station here. So this is me signing off for another edition of Creator Conversations. We hope you've enjoyed getting to know one of our favorite Sudburians this week, and we hope you'll check our SoundCloud account to see some past episodes. Signing off for this week. We will catch you next Sunday at 10 o'clock.